After creating your cloth, there are lots of things you can do to turn it from a simple cloth into a masterpiece. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the accessories, divine accessories we can use to do that, along with a few tools that will help with texturing so you can easily add really nice materials to your cloth. And we also have a look at DivinePrint. So we're going to get started. We're starting off with the mesh itself. You can use the sections below to skip to whichever part of the video you're most interested in. So we're going to start with the mesh. What can we do on the mesh? The first thing is adding seams. So you may know this already, but you can add seams by selecting edges and then press Ctrl E and click on Mark Sharp. So when you do that, it adds a seam to that edge. And you can also do the same, press Ctrl E and clear sharp to remove that sharpness. So I'm just going to do that for these two edges here, and that is it. You can also add fur. Click on the mesh itself and click on add fur, and it will add fur to your mesh. So you can choose the type woolly and click on OK, and it will add fur to your mesh. You have lots of settings that will appear here, such as curl size, which you can adjust, and it also has its own material. So if you go into the rendered view, you'll see the fur itself, and it comes with its own material. So you can see woolly fur here. So you can change the color to whichever color you want. You can also add fur to a particular part of the mesh. So I'm just going to remove this fur from here. And so to do that, go into edit mode and select a few vertices like this, like that. And when I click on add fur, it's going to add fur to the regions around the selected vertices. So click on add fur, woolly, and it adds fur to that whole section. I know it makes more sense to select the faces, but because when you add that vertex group, it does the surrounding vertices as well, you have to select the inner one. So if I add fur as it is currently, it will add fur to more regions which we don't actually want. So you have to select those vertices within the region where you want the fur, like this, and then click on add fur, and it will do that. If you're using render view as well, you can see we have fur. You can play around with these settings. There are different types of fur you can add, such as bubbles. So you can add bubbles to the entire thing, and that is good for just these flyaway hairs on clothes, just for that added detail. You can always increase the count over here if you want more fur on the cloth. Alright, so that's it for the mesh. Alright, so we're going to start with the Divine assets. This is the pack that comes with DivineCut. And we're going to start with threads. So all of these threads work the same. And we're going to add a thread over here. So first of all, make sure that object is set as the Divine cloth. So make sure, yeah, you've done that. And to add a thread to this, simply drag a thread from the asset browser. So you pull open the asset browser from the side, asset browser here. And we're just going to pull this onto here. So you can scale it to however big or large you want the thread to be, and then click on Divine Accessory. Now it will bring us into edit mode, where you can pull or extrude, press E to extrude the thread along the mesh, however long you want it to be. If you want to create a brand new thread, you're going to have to drag a new one, and if you want to mirror the thread, then select it and give it a mirror modifier. I'm going to search for mirror, and then set the cloth as the mirror object. So you can see it's now mirrored to the opposite side. I'll just make this a bit smaller here to give more room. Alright, so I'm going to add another thread here. You can use a different one just to show each one. Like that. Press G, move it onto it. Press N and Divine Accessory.
You've gotten.
It has voice lines sometimes just to make working a bit more fun. But yes, you can now position it and then select it and give it a mirror modifier. Mirror, and set the mirror object as the cloth object so you can see it's mirrored to the other side. You can also add another thread all around. You can skip this part if you want, but this will just be the final thread I'll add. Click on Divine Accessory and press E to extrude. You can see this edge here is a bit sharp to turn, but I'll show you how to smoothen it out in a second. Aha. So I'm going to try to do it halfway along the back since we're going to mirror it. And you can actually select a few of these. So press hold Control and select each of these ones. You can press Control T to twist it like that. So you can see these ones weren't aligned, but now by twisting we've kind of aligned it better. I'm going to subdivide between these two. Select these two and right click and subdivide just to add an extra segment here. Alright, so now to smoothen the entire thing out, select all and right click and set handle type to automatic. So you can see they're all much smoother now. Alright, so I'm now going to give this a mirror modifier and set the mirror object as the cloth. So now we have those threads. So now when you press play, the cloth still goes on its own, and that's because it hasn't been bound. So come back to the first frame, select the thread itself and click on bind. Do the same for this one, bind, and this one as well, bind. And now they're all bound to the top. My mannequin is in rest pose. So yeah, so that's how you add threads. You can also add these zips to the mesh. I'm gonna add this this zip over here, which they kind of work the same as threads. Just drag it on, press Divine Accessory, and you can now extrude it along the top like that. You can press Alt S to scale it, or to scale that point of the handle. You can also edit the mesh itself. I'm gonna enable this so we can see the effect on the curve. And when you drag it along the x-axis, you can see here, the x-axis, it slides it. Grab it along the y-axis, it slides it, and along the z-axis as well, it slides it like that. I think for this one I don't want this piece that's underneath, so I'm just going to select that and delete that from there, leave it like this. And I'm going to add one more thread, this thing over here, to this side, scale it up, Divine Accessory, and we can now begin to extrude it along like so. So you can see it's facing the wrong direction. You can select all and press Ctrl T 180 to flip it, or you can edit the object itself the same way we did the previous one and rotate it along 180. Just find the axis, that's Y, press X, and X has worked. So now we can just kind of slide it or move it until it has the offset that we're looking for along the local X, Y, or Z axis. Okay, so this is good. I'm now going to give it a mirror modifier. I'm going to add a button so that you just press one button and you don't have to do this mirroring thing, because I think that just makes sense. And I'm going to scale down the tip over here by pressing Alt S, just to create a kind of a taper towards the top, which feels a bit neater. Alright, so when you're done, click on this object. So I'm just going to move this a little bit. Yeah. And click on bind. Just trying to remove this intersection here. Seems to be going through. I think that's okay. Click on bind and do the same for this zip here. Click on bind. And they are now bound to the top. So we have threads, we have zips. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the next section, which is shoes. So you have shoes over here, but I'm going to use a shoe pack, my sneakers, and I'm going to add this shoe. So what you want to do is, I have to put this in rest mode because I have to offset the foot, which is why it's looking weird like that, so that it doesn't so I'll put this in rest mode, and we're going to position this shoe. This is the left foot. I'm just going to move it here, rotate it, and just try and fit it onto the foot. Then go into sculpt mode and use the elastic grab brush, because that works best for adjusting big objects like this. And you can now like shape the shoe until it fits onto the character's foot. I'm just going to pull this out. Then when you're done, either add a mirror modifier or just click on Divine Accessory and it should mirror it automatically. Then click on bind and to bind it to your character. So shoes are bound a bit differently from all other objects because we don't want very weird deformations. So the binding uses the armature instead of using the character's skin. So this way, when the character is walking, the shoes do not bend too weird. It would be a lot more weird than this if it uses the other algorithm. Anyway, so that's how you add shoes. The same thing for crocs and slides. Simply shape it onto the character and click on bind. Now for pockets, it's the same thing as well. Simply drag a pocket onto the character's top. You can rotate it along the Z axis 90 degrees and click on Divine Accessory. So that will snap it onto the cloth. You can see over here some of it is peeking into the cloth. So I'm just going to disable snapping with Shift Tab and move it away from the cloth a little bit, and you can see that's fixed. And click on bind. And it's now bound to the top. So not all pockets. We have this pocket that has simulation as well. So you can drag this onto the cloth, rotate it along the Z-axis, and click on Divine Accessory. So now it's snapping onto the cloth. And when you're satisfied, click on bind. So when you press play, the cloth actually also, the pocket also has simulation enabled. Especially if you have to also make sure the top has collision. So if you click on toggle collision, collision turned off, toggle collision, collision turned on, the pocket will also collide with the top, and you'll have this simulation as well. So we have a pocket that has simulation. The other pockets work the same as well. Simply drag them onto the cloth, click on Divine Accessory, position it wherever you like. You can scale it and then click on bind. You can also mirror it, give it a mirror modifier, but make sure the mirror modifier is above the surface deform modifier. Set the cloth as the object and click on bind. So that's it for pockets. For materials, we have a few materials here which I'm going to try to expand this library a lot more. We have very few materials going on here, but to add these materials you simply drag them onto the cloth, and it's as simple as that. Yeah, materials are quite simple. Because it's set to append and reuse, they're all using separate velvet materials. So you can just shift select them and then press Ctrl L and then link materials. So they're all using the same velvet material. So you can change the color from here. Very simple. I'm gonna link this one as well. Ctrl L, link materials. Alright, I'm gonna move on to buttons now. So we also have buttons. They work exactly the same. Simply pull it on to this area. You can scale it and press Divine Accessory, and you can duplicate them, position them, and then when you're done you can hold shift and select each one and click on bind selected, and they'll also be bound to the cloth. And now for the Divine Accessories, we have these guys as well. You can drag them on to the cloth. They all kind of have the exact same algorithm or way of working. Just drag them on, press Divine Accessory, and then click on bind. So objects like this also have simulation. So when you press play, you'll see it's actually a lace like that. So you can actually bake it from this side as well, or just come to frame 1 and you'll see bake over here. We can set the end cache. So here we end at 100 frames. So I'll come to the cache, set it to 100, and just click on bake to bake it. But I'm not going to bake this now because we don't really need to. But the same applies for objects like this lace and this one. They have simulation. So just click on bind, and when you press play, they act like that. we can select this guy, press toggle collision, whatever you want cloth to collide with, select it and click on toggle collision. But I think this one collision modifier is below the solidify, so just gonna move it above the solidify since that's what we want in this case, and it collides with it. You can increase the quality steps of the cloth on this guy to, it's currently 5, you can make it 10 or 20 and it will perform much better. We're not going to do that now. Yeah, we also have, we're going to move on to the next one now, which will be glasses. You send to add glasses, we already have some here, I'm just going to remove these and add a new pair. To add glasses, you move the origin of the glasses to the left ear over here at this point, and press Alt R to reset the rotation. And then we're just going to scale it till it matches on the other side, like that. That's enough. Then view it from the side and scale it along the y-axis, or move it along the y-axis until this part rests on the nose, and then click on bind. So what binding with the glasses does is it parents it to the head bone of the armature. It looks for a bone that has the word head in it, and if it doesn't have the word head, then it will report the message that I couldn't find a head bone. So if you want to parent it manually, hold shift with the glasses selected and select the armature, go into pose mode, select the head bone and press Ctrl P and click on bone, and that will parent it to the bone. But pressing bind automatically parents glasses to the head bone, so that's, the bind button does different things for a different object. We can also now go to the, we've done crocs and slides, so you simply drag the shoe onto the character and press bind after sculpting it. And we have wrists and wristwear and watches. I'm going to put this in rest pose. So to add these guys, it's pretty simple, all kind of the same algorithm. Simply drag it onto the character and shape it onto, let's say, the arm of the character, like this. It's the same way belts work. And when it's fitted nicely enough, click on Divine Accessory and it will snap it onto the character's arm like this. You can still slide it along and scale it. When you're satisfied with this position, click on bind and it will now be bound to the character. So you can go back into pose mode and press play, and you can see it seems to have failed in this case. I'm going to fix this before you get it, or out today I guess, but ideally it tries to bind this object here. So I'm just going to click on the surface deform modifier on this guy, or you can select this thingy here and click on bind and it binds it. So that doesn't happen for the other watches. I'm just going to do that and make sure. But you simply position it onto the character's arm like this. You can scale it whichever direction, like that, and then click on Divine Accessory, which will snap it on. You can still, fiddle with it, make sure it's perfect, and then click on bind, and that will bind it to the character's arm. So that's how the other ones work as well. This particular one here, you might want to adjust the shrink wrap on it, so you can do that for the other ones as well, but I'll just show you how this one is. And you can do the same for all the other objects. So just position it against the character. I'm gonna bring this up so I can see the axes. So the Z axis, and then click on Divine Accessory. And what I mean is you can see the object is going into the character's arm. So just select this shrink wrapper, this thingy here. Come over to the shrink wrap modifier, and we're going to increase the offset to 0.001 or whichever value you like, 0.003. And when you're satisfied with it, you can click bind or click on the object here and click bind, and it will now bind it to the character. So each object also has the shrink wrapper, which you can use to set the offset. Remember, you can skip sections, because I'm just doing one more here before we go. Just gonna move this here. Last one, just to show you the shrink wrapper so you can adjust it if needed. Click on Divine Accessory. You can see it's now wrapped on. And the shrink wrapper, you can now use that to set the offsets. So you can see the offset here, 0.001. Or you can hold shift and drag it to set how far away it should be before pressing bind. You can press bind on either that or this one. Same thing. Alright, so that is it for wristwear and accessories. We're now going to move on to chains and necklaces. So chains and necklaces work a bit differently. We're going to bring this one on. So just drag it in and then scale it around the character's neck, however you like it to be. Like this. And when you're done, click on Divine Accessory. So now to start turning it, or to make it into, like, to give it simulation rather, go to the first frame and click on the object and click on Start Accessory Physics. It will now bring you into this mode. Press A to select all if it's not all selected, and then press Ctrl A to scale this cage. So this cage is what's actually going to be simulated, and it's going to carry the necklace. So I'm going to scale it until it's okay. This would be good, but I'm just going to scale it a bit lower. And then click on Finish Accessory Physics. So when you're done, it's practically done. You can press play and it will drop onto the character. Like that. So as you can see, when she walks forward, it kind of pulls everything and everything gets a bit messy. So what you might want to do is snap or keep this place locked onto the character. So I'm just going to go into sculpt mode with the cage selected. Using the elastic brush, I'm going to drag it down so that this area rests onto the character. And then under painting, I'm going to paint pinning. Press Alt-Z to see the weights. We're just going to paint onto this part. And what that's going to do is it's going to lock it onto the object. So now we're going to go back into object mode. Click on bind. So that area that we've painted will remain at that point, and that helps to keep the front area intact in animations like this or some other scenarios. I'm gonna select this guy. I think collision is already turned on, but yeah, that is how you add chains and necklaces. I'm gonna do one more. I'm going to bring this in. So you see how we sculpted this place and it wasn't completely neat? You can actually do that beforehand. So let's say we add this guy over here. Click on Divine Accessory. And what you'll do is select the curve that's inside. There's an object and there's a curve inside. Go into edit mode, and this way you can actually edit the shape of the curve before starting the accessory physics. Like that. You can also press Ctrl T to twist it, but you can't really tell since they're all spherical in this case. When you're done, you can adjust this guy just to make sure it fits nicely, and then click on Start Accessory Physics. The same format, press Ctrl A and click on Finish Accessory Physics. And we can now select the cage and paint pinning on it so that we keep this area locked. Click on bind and press play. So currently you can see that you can see both chains are intersecting with each other. You can select the first one and click on toggle collision, and that way the second one will collide with the first one, so we can have a neater chain physics. So that's how you add chains, and we're now going to move on to the last section, which is belts. I'm just going to bake these so that, or in fact, I'm just going to do it straight. You can add a belt by, I'm going to hide the top. Oh, we already have a belt here. I'm just going to delete this. By coming over to the belt section, can see we have men's belts, women's belts. I'm going to drag this on and scale it. We want to make sure that the trousers are the Divine cloth object, so that it recognizes which object to step onto. I'm going to scale this like this. Scale this from the side. And when it's positioned nicely, let me hide these guys. When it's positioned nicely, same thing like the wrists and the wristwear. Click on Divine Accessory, and we come into this mode. You can see this part is clipping, so you can scale it along the x-axis and it's fixed. Here as well, scale it along the y-axis and it's fixed. And you can just position it until you're satisfied, and then click on Bind. So now we have the belt bound onto the trousers. Alright then, so we have tiny intersections here, so you might want to increase the collision distance on the top. But I've already baked this, so it's okay. So that is it for the Divine accessories. That's how you use each object. After you bind, you can see we have some objects here like curves and stuff. You can actually delete them, they're good to go. Perhaps I'll try to edit DivineCut so that it deletes them automatically, because you don't need them anymore. That's the curves that were used for this guy. But I think there's one more here. But yeah, that's it. That is it for the Divine accessories and how you can use the Divine asset packs to pimp up your cloth and make it a lot more detailed. So now we're going to go on to the materials and texturing using DivineCut, using Simply Fast, Simply Material, and Sanctus library and Fluent. So we're just going to go over these extra add-ons and how they can actually help with your cloth texturing. And we're going to start with Simply Fast. So I'm going to drag some Simply Fast materials onto this cloth. Let me enable the prop so we have better lighting. I'm just going to move forward a few frames so you can see the cloth in action. And I'm going to open the asset browser, and you can see Simply Fast. So here we have lots of fabric materials. It comes with a few other materials as well. This was made by my friend Slower, who also made Simply Cloth. So the fabric materials are amazing. You simply drag them onto the cloth. I'm going to hide these pockets that don't have the material for now. But you can see they have some really simple materials which you can just simply drag on, and you can adjust the settings here. They all come with really simple settings you can adjust. You can drag on this camo texture, the curtain texture, which is a bit transparent, fabric fiber, and yeah, they're all pretty cool. So that is Simply Fast. It's as the name says, it's Simply Fast. We also have a Sanctus library. So Sanctus is another add-on that has lots of fabric materials, which I love to use. Then click on Apply Material, and you can see this bubble wrap material is pretty interesting. You can adjust the displacement. So here it's set to 1. You can change to 0.1. That'll reduce it. And they have lots of different other materials as well. This one, bubble wrap, leather, jean, and you can just play around with them. So you simply apply these materials and they work pretty fine. Another tool we can use to add materials to a cloth is Simply Material. And Simply Material is an add-on that can add materials to your cloth. So click on your cloth and click on Create Simply Material, and it will give you this initial really cool texture on your cloth. So it has lots of tools such as colors, so you can adjust the color. So currently it's using texture color. If I disable this, you have a color ramp where you can set the color that you want the blacks to be and the whites to be. So I'm going to leave it as default for now. And it comes with lots and lots of textures. So over here we have a library of textures that it comes with. So over here we have AI textures and Simply textures. So on the Simply textures we have realistic, which comes with this huge pack of realistic textures. We have synthetic, colored, logos, overlays, texture details, and a lot more. We have cultures, which is like medieval, Nordic, Arabic, Asian, and a lot. It's a very big library, and that's just under one folder. We have AI textures as well that we can use to add different styles to a cloth. But before we do that, we have DivinePrint, which also adds images to clothes, and I've made it work with Simply Material because Simply Material is so awesome. So simply add an image plane. So click on add image, add image plane, or add image as texture, and you can bring in a logo. For instance, I'm going to bring in Zara, and we can scale it and position it onto the cloth. So I'm just going to place it here like this. Align rotation to target, so that helps to stop it better. And before we do that, you have to, it's best to make sure the mirror modifier is applied, and select all, press U, and unwrap angle based. So it's good to unwrap your mesh before doing this. So make sure that top is the Divine cloth. So just going to make that the cloth here, and then if you want to spray this onto the cloth, under DivinePrint, click on spray. So when you do that, you can see it has sprayed the image over here. So it sprayed it black because the image itself is black, but you can click on Materialize, and that will give it a custom material. So when you come to the material section, you can customize the color of it, you can customize how metallic you want it to be. It kind of mixes it with your current material, so it's still within the same material. Okay. So back to Simply Material, you can actually add more to this. I'm just going to save that. And we have lots of tools like normals, roughness, alpha. Under extra shading, we even have glitter, wearing, dispersion. There's so much, but I can't dive into all of it in this tutorial, but you can definitely check it out and see all that it comes with. We can adjust the colors of this. I'm just going to do that and bring this whites down. Okay, that's the micro color. So this is the use texture color, and I'm just going to select this one and bring it down, and we can make the other objects have the same material by pressing Ctrl L, link materials. So that is pretty cool, pretty sick. One thing I forgot to mention with DivinePrint, when you spray, it also sprays the back of the cloth. So remember to go over to the back, select those faces in edit mode, and then click on wipe on the DivinePrint, and that will wipe that part off. So last but not least, we have Fluent Materializer, which we can use to create more custom materials for our cloth. So here we have, I've just given it a turtleneck material, which is a simple principled shader. I'm just going to pull open the shader node tab, and what we're going to do is create a mix shader, or select this material, press F, and you can see 2 layers, and that will create a layer of 2 different colors, or 2 different layers. So what you want to do now is press F, and you can see all edges, click on that, and it will create a mask of all the edges like this. So this way you can set the material of the first of one part of it. So I'm going to reduce this distance here to 0.003, and the other part, so you can create some kind of effect that resembles fading like that, which is really cool. You can set the roughness of each part like that, and here as well. Because we're using Blender 4.3, it currently has this kind of flat effect here. You can break it up with grunge, but in previous versions of Blender, we don't get such a flat edge here because of the smooth by angle node, or modifier rather. When you plug this result into the texture, you can see it adds this broken up texture around your cloth, which is pretty cool. So if we start the frame from frame 11, we can see it in action. I'm just going to bind this zip to the top. On the DivineCut, click on bind, and you can see we have our cloth like this. I saw something gold here. Okay, that's the belt peeking through. Alright, so yeah, that's Fluent. Fluent also has like different materials or nodes as well, patterns. It has fabric as well that you can play around with. I'm just going to try one of these, see what they do. You can add this to the color, and make one of them black. So yeah, you can actually play around. So there are different tools, and these are the main tools that I use. Simply Fast, Simply Material, the Sanctus library, Fluent, DivinePrint, and some of the Divine materials sometimes. So I'm going to update that pack. But yeah, that is basically it. That brings us to the end of this tutorial. I hope you can use all these different features. You can mix them up, of course, and apply different things to your object, but that is the workflow using Divine Accessories and all these other tools to add textures to make clothes look more amazing. Have fun and let me know what you think in the comment section, and if you run into any problems you can comment as well, or send me a message on the Blender Market or on Superhive, which is what it's turning into. But yeah, have fun and safe.